I ate at Club 33. Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Today I thought we would just talk about a bunch of cool stuff. Not sure what I'm going to call the episode. Gotta make it catchy, otherwise people won't watch it. But yeah, so my birthday's coming up here, and a friend of mine just so happened to have another friend that said, hey, I got tickets to go to Club 33 in Disneyland. The secret restaurant, club, place. And that friend told the other friend, okay, here's the thing. I can't go without my buddy Mark because I'll get in trouble. So over a month and a half ago, 2 months, they planned this whole thing. I don't even know until the day before, because they had to tell me. They told me actually about a month and a half ago, this day, don't do anything. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. And then all of a sudden it was boom, 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 going to Disneyland, and we're going to this Club 33, which of course we've talked about. Got some pictures for you. So it's very, very interesting. For those of you who don't know what Club 33 is, because there's quite a few folks that don't know what it is. Right about the time that Walt is helped out of this world, let's just put it that way, he goes to a warehouse in Anaheim. He is pushed through a mock-up of the Pirates of the Caribbean, which is your 322 Skull and Bones lineage, right? It's all, they think they're from pirates, and maybe they are. So this is going to be a whole ride, just basically worshiping their lineage. Obviously, it's a super cool ride too. They made a lot of changes to it. Well, I would say they made one super significant change. It's kind of, whoa, that's wow, that's not good. His goal was to make a wax museum below the park right in New Orleans, because New Orleans hadn't really been opened yet. They were building it, right? But anyway, he gets done being pushed through this mock-up, tells the guys, hey, I got to go get my throat looked at, and I'll see you guys later. Within, I think, a week or whatever, he was dead. Now, throat cancer doesn't work like that, okay? So he is gone. The ride isn't finished. The ride gets installed from the warehouse to the actual waterworks and the $7 million hole they dug. And then a building is built around it because you have to get people into the ride. But above that, they have, well, I should put it this way. Over to the side, inside this ride, when you go inside, there's this Blue Bayou restaurant, which you can go to. It's a very nice restaurant. Just make sure the water doesn't stink in the ride, because everything you eat will taste like the water. I found that out the hard way. I haven't had the water smell in a really long time. It must have just been a bad infection in the water. Not enough chemicals. But above that and behind it is this Club 33. Club 33 is a very small place. The restaurant, I don't know how many people could sit, probably 50 comfortably. There's a famous blue staircase inside of the park, and it used to be really easy to access this. It's kind of in a middle weird area, and I've taken pictures on this with my buddies in the past. And now it's sequestered away as part of the entry to this restaurant, which I think we got in because it's open to the public. We certainly don't have the membership, and we weren't riding on anyone's membership. The membership is $25,000 a year for the first year and $10,000 a year for every subsequent year. And then, of course, you still have to pay for everything, but you get a ton of tickets and probably some discounts, whatever. But you go into this special area, which is this blue staircase. Actually, it's not even true. You can go that route. We went through the this side thing because there's a door that says 33, and that's not the way. And you go around the side, and there's an elevator. And you push the button. You go up. The elevator is really cool looking. And you get out. And, of course, there's like, you push the button and they ask you who you are. And you say you have a reservation. Okay, great. And we'll help you in. You go up. Really cool lobby. I mean, it just kind of looks like a, I wouldn't say hotel lobby, but it's definitely some sort of Victorian looking location. A lot of modernism. You're going to see the photographs. You walk down a little hallway, past the merchandising and all that kind of stuff, and they sit you down. When we got there was only 2 tables eating with us, or eating at the same time, 2 women off to our left, and a party of 4 about 10 feet away. Because it was my birthday, another person's birthday, and another couple's anniversary, they print the menus specific to whatever event you're having. So they printed my name on it, which I thought was cool. Food is fantastic. The only thing I ate that was a little dry was this little cannoli looking thing. Steak is awesome. Dessert was awesome. The speed of the delivery of the food was phenomenal. I mean, we had 6 people, and when the food came, it landed within 5 to 10 seconds. Everyone had their plates, just like almost a 5-star service, right? Had a dedicated guy who didn't do the full 5-star annoying service, but it was 4.5. Okay. I've been in 5-star places, and it's like just a couple times in my lifetime, and it gets annoying, man. You know, you move a fucking knife and a dude walks up and moves it back into place, or if you use a butter knife and it sits there for a minute, there's a hand underneath your hand. I mean, your arms are like this, right? And some dude's arms are going underneath, grabbing that and replacing it. It's really quite astonishing if they do it right. This was very well calibrated. I'm not a drinker that much, but I did get one drink. It was funny because they said, oh, these are specially crafted for, by our bartenders internally. So I'm like, what the heck? And this was just bourbon with a orange peel twisted in it. That's all it was, man. But all these ingredients they're fucking advertising, it's all bullshit. But it's about $160 a person. Takes about an hour and change to eat it all because it comes in these stages. They wrap everything up for you in terms of the memorabilia and stuff. You get this little box, little bag about this big, which is nice. You can put it in a locker, or you can carry it, and it wouldn't even be a big deal. It's got a beautiful logo on it. Now, the only difference between us not being members and being members was that we ate in the dining area. If you're a member, you can go in this little tiny area that is so cramped, it really would be only to say you've been there, and it's like a big bar against the wall. Well, not even a big bar. It's almost like a bar you might find on a boat. So we didn't go into the super secret area, but we looked in there, and it was just, they wouldn't let us go in there. They would not let us set a foot in there. But there's a whole big balcony you can take all these pictures on, and just overlooking New Orleans. Except what's interesting is there's umbrellas down there on the bottom floor. I don't know what it is down there, but they're just covered in crap. Like, it's weird because the entire park is the cleanest place you've ever been in your life. You just drop a piece of popcorn or do go, boop, This was disgusting. These umbrellas need to be taken down every day, probably 2 or 3 times a day, and washed off. But they, it was the only dingy place I'd ever seen in my life at Disneyland. Anyway, so hope you enjoy the photographs. You've now seen at least a giant portion of the real eating area and the real kind of welcome area and the nice area of the Club 33. It doesn't mean I'm on their team or anything. It just means I got to eat there. It was pretty interesting. I had a fantastic day there. Finally rode the the Star Wars ride, Rise, which I have to say is definitely a contender for one of the top rides in the entire park. It's about 4 or 5 rides in one. It just, every little segment of the ride is completely different, so you don't have any boredom whatsoever. And just to be inside of the Death Star, oh my God, you walk into this fucking room, man. Oh my God, pardon my Francais. There must be 150 stormtroopers, all polished up in a big, like a line like the Emperor's coming, right? And they're all automatrons. They're all moving just a little bit like a video game. And it's like, whoa. It's a big room, and it's just like, you see it on TV in the movie theater, and I'm just going to tell you, man, it is way different walking into that amazing situation for real. And it's just a little moment in the whole ride. So we all know what happens at that institution. The parks are different in one way, in that Disneyland is the only park that Walt ever set foot in. So anyway, it was a good day. Very good day. Good people too. I was very fortunate. So I thought we would talk about some stuff that's sort of topical, but not like the super duper dark stuff that I put over in Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey, which is the normal report, the chaos report, right? Because I get feedback from you guys and I love it. I went through a ton of comments today. Somebody said today, God bless you, hey man, you're starting to look old. It's looking like you're aging. I'm like, yeah, I was 44 when I started this show and I'm 54 in a week. Yeah. 8 years will kind of make you gain a little bit of like age. It's really funny. I got buddies of mine that play sports, run, and probably sleep with a different woman every two days, and they look 10 years older than me. So it's like, I'm all right. I feel good with myself. So I did the moon mission episode, which definitely is one of my favorite topics in the entire world to discuss. And of course, I get done with those episodes and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot this. I forgot that. I should have said this. I should have said that. One of the smoking guns, one of you mentioned, that I mentioned a long time ago, when someone brought it to my attention, of course, was that they never filmed the Earth with a video camera because they couldn't. It's a fake set. Of course they could. For anyone thinking that we went, that's one you can throw out. 6 missions successfully landed on the surface of the moon, according to their timeline. Apollo 17, I think, claimed 25 hours on the moon's surface. That's a day and an hour. Like, first of all, where do you get the oxygen to do this? Where do you get the energy to do this? Yeah, you got a few solar panels out there. Well, geez, even with solar panels today, I think it would be challenging to claim that you had enough power being generated by those to do anything. And maybe today you could, but with the size of them and today's technology, and then dial that back 54 years, it's just so much crap, right? One of you mentioned, hey, do you think that the astronauts were actually in the Saturn V at all? Good point. I don't think they were in that craft at all, necessarily. I don't know. And again, that would mean that the tuna can flipping that Buzz Aldrin did on camera, in a color camera, by the way. The camera that supposedly films this lunar lander, top half going back up to the service module and it tilting up, that's in color. Buzz is in color, turning the tuna can. What else? Oh, filming the wall, filming the portal window with the gel on it of Earth and the fake, everything's fake. That's in color. But when the dude steps on the moon, it's in black and white and the grainiest crap you've ever seen. Come on, right? Of course, when they're putting the flag on the surface, it was also color and just looks almost like a set from some sort of play your kid was in when they were 10. When they truly attempt to go back to the moon, and Bob, we're going to talk about India, there'll be just an avalanche of new content, and I'm sure that they are trying to figure out how that'll work. I think they want to get past this reset, because they're basically burning down the world. And it's just like, man, it's the easiest things. Right? It's like you think they're going to be doing something really, amazing. The fake UFO invasion, I think that's a distraction. And I think that they always want something out there that they give you enough to sink your teeth into. They give you all the indicators that you need to hang on to that theory. You tell your friends, you tell your family, and in the end, they never do it. But that's the lost leader that they invest in to make sure you look stupid to your family. Someone mentioned an interesting thing I never heard before, which is that they said that they were told, and I don't know by who they would have been told, or is it whom, that the Saturn V never exploded during any of its launches because they ran it at half power. Now Not sure that the gravity mechanisms of the Rocketdyne engines have the capacity to run at 50%. Those tubes, again, the diameter of the tubes, the fuel mixture, it is all just light it and it starts flowing out of those tubes. And I do not know if there's a capability of creating an aperture in it to lower the amount of fuel and still have the system work. Remember, and again, this is real technology because you saw it with your own eyes. With the tubular stuff that goes down the cone of the engines, that's fuel coming down to be lit on fire because it's cooling off the metal at the same time that it's lighting it on fire, because those fires are definitely hot enough to melt the engines themselves. So they're cooling off the engine and burning it at the exact same moment. I mean, just the intelligence to create these engines is utterly phenomenal. But I didn't mess up, but I forgot to complete the sentence. When they went to Siberia in 94 to get the engines that the Russians had put in there in 72, they got them here by 95. They put them on one of those railroad track overpass test units. When they fired up 1972 Russian engines, they were 2.5 times stronger than NASA's strongest engine as of 1995. That's why it's like, and they couldn't make it because they said they didn't have enough power underneath their rocket, which had a lot more engines than we did, to escape Earth's gravitational force. And of course, their big boy blew up on the tarmac. I don't know if we commandoed the thing or come up with some other technology to make it blow up, but it obviously didn't make it. And it was such a huge explosion and such a sort of PR scar for Russia. They basically said, get rid of this whole thing. Like it never existed. We just won't even talk about it anymore, which is so weird. Now, as I'm sitting here talking to you, this is going to be a while. This won't be the very next episode as of this moment, so this will be about a week in the can. I am rendering the G.E. Kincaid animations, which should be done by tomorrow, and I'll get that out next, and this will come soon after that. So there might be a little bit of a delay between the episode after the one you're watching right now, because I will put out two. Somebody mentioned they missed the backyard. They missed being outside. And man, believe me, I'm with you. I'm so with you. It's this is quite a setup, man. I mean, it's like I've helped bands set up, the drums and the mics and and the amplifiers and all that kind of stuff. And it's like this is about about a third of a normal band unpacking to get this whole thing set up. Because this is all like, some of this is pretty pro equipment, and there's just like so much stuff I got to do all by myself. So I've got some people that have offered their backyards. Some of them are full of like dog poop, and others are it's just too much of an imposition for me to, wiggle into someone's space, because you would have to then know, oh, that noise, that's Mark, just ignore him. He's doing his show. Plus, it's sort of like if you think someone's listening to you talk, you're conscious of what you're saying or something like that. So this is our little private time. Plus, I just think it's cool to have cigar motifs, because these are real boxes back here. Get sold every day. Yeah, the housing market is obviously super inflated because they have made it impossible to buy a home, as BlackRock is scooping up the world for the deep state. And so, young people are trying to buy houses at, 7% plus, and they're going to push that to probably about 12%. So you can't borrow any money unless you're just an idiot or you're just in a hard spot. But I got the house I got before because of the dip in the economy, which should happen within 4 to 8 months. And so that dip will happen. A lot of the houses around here I just talked to a kid who does mortgages, and he said, look, man, he goes, the defaulting on homes around here is off the charts. And it's strange because when you live in this area, and I grew up in Kansas, just everybody lived within their means. They did. When you live within your means and everyone's mortgage is within range, if you had to ask your parents back in the day, in the 70s or 80s, hey, man, Mom, I can't make my payment, it's not really going to kill them to give you 1 or 2 payments to get you through. If you want to go to college and you're in your 30s, your parents can cover it because it's just not that much. But around here, because everyone's literally living outside their means, everyone's pretending to be rich. It's a disease, man. There's no way for a family to help you. When you go tits up, you lose it all. And I've had friends over the last 20 years I go to their homes and it's like, Mercedes, their BMW SUV, and, I go inside, it's and the fucking house is like 4,500, 5,000 square feet up on a hill in Laguna Hills or something like that. I look around, I'm like, how does this dude have this money? He must have rich family or something, or his wife's rich or something. And then poof, one mess up, one mistake, and the guy is literally living with his mom, with his wife and 2 kids, sort of thing. So I've seen that happen, and I've heard many, many stories on it. But it's funny because the one interesting thing you'll learn in this area is that the hustle. The hustle is a weird concept. You have to find a business very quickly that makes money, that's hopefully legitimate, I mean, you're not breaking the law, to make money to live. And the more you got a family and kids and all that kind of stuff, it's just daunting and the pressure's on you. So you want to have the widest portfolio, obviously, skill sets. You don't feel like you're working, but you're getting stuff done. What else we got going here in these wild days? There's a tremendous amount of talk of electrifying what you grow in this world. Taking wood rods and wrapping copper wire around them and then sticking them in the ground very near where you grow vegetation. The sad thing is like, one, I don't have any means of really doing this. I mean, I don't have a garden anymore. I mean, like I could have one in my old house, but my lawn guys would probably kill it. But if you do, you can do this technique, and there's people with photographs of giant cabbages and giant this and giant that. So if you have something that you can grow locally in your backyard or whatever, you might get into it and check it out. It goes all the way to some very interesting concepts of, I think some of you may know, when we put on leather shoes, put on plastic shoes, rubber shoes, and we don't touch the ground, then our electrical relationship with the earth, which is something we've always had a relationship with before we made these shoes, which is the majority of time on earth. Even if you're into biblical time frames, we were barefoot a lot, and at least, you had your sandals, but you take them off at night and you may put your foot on soil. That balanced you out electrically. And so people have made bed sheets that have some sort of like a Faraday pattern in them. And then the bed sheet actually has a wire that goes out at your bedroom window and down into the ground, like a lightning rod. And it can ground you when you're sleeping, giving you what you would normally have had you not ever developed homes and foundations to keep you from the earth, right? But the other one I just heard from that Matt Sensibilities, makes complete sense, is to make sure that you sleep north to south. And if you have trouble sleeping, and you might be sleeping east to west, and it makes sense because your head is your north and your bottom of your feet is the south because you stand up like this, right? But the earth is always ejecting ethereal winds. And so you want to get in alignment with those winds. So you generally get cleansed of any type of electrical properties you might have that are messing up your mojo. And that's why things like processed foods, you got to be very careful with processed foods. Anything that's ionized, anything that's like, remember ice cream that tastes like crap after it sits too long? An ice cube that sits too long in the freezer gets kind of like this frost on it, and then you eat it, and it tastes weird. It's because it's got this tremendous concentration of negative ions. When you eat a bunch of negative properties, well, what's attracted to negative? Positive. Well, at that point, you're no longer going to be alkaline in your system because you've eaten something that's overcharged in a negative manner, and you're going to be attracting all your positivity to this food supply that you put in your body, as opposed to eating living or freshly killed alkaline level kind of balanced positive negative foods. goes down to the system, and there's an even distribution. So as your body goes for the positive and the negative, it's even all the way down as you pass it out your system. Just remember, your upper intestine is responsible for getting all the nutrition out of what you eat, and your lower intestine is just basically a dumpster, just constantly pushing out the George Soroses of the world, right? You know, Twitter changed its name, and I didn't say anything because I was kind of like, I don't want to put a lot of effort into giving people a voice that I don't think you should be listening to in the first place. So when we do our Telegram channel, which is Deep Thoughts channel, and if you guys are ever like, man, what did he just say? Just go to deepthoughtsradio.com. It's on the bottom of every video. And all the links are there, so I don't have to worry about remembering anything. But on there, like, we just had a presidential debate, and so I go to one of my channels, and man, there's like 1,000 videos of what everybody said. I don't think you should be listening to any of those people because 45 isn't in there. Don't listen to it. No one's on stage that should be listened to except for Carrie Lake. And this Vivek guy, if you're mystified by Vivek, everything he says is super polished, super rehearsed. He's obviously got a high IQ, but he is there to push himself into the system. He's not for you. JFK or RFK Jr., definitely 2 thumbs up to that guy. He's on the liberal ticket. I think he says a lot of great stuff. I don't know if they would ever, it would be the first time we ever put a guy into the office with a disability that we'd have to listen to constantly. And I love the guy. But we haven't put a president in who's bald. I don't think we've put a president that hasn't been actively married. So there's just some Chotskys that have to be there. Otherwise, you don't get a shot. It's just something that the parties won't allow. Of course, the parties are all corrupted, but 45's got weight to strong arm the GOP into one realm. They could be off trying to kill him, and he'd just be like, I don't think so. You know. Somebody tried to start a rumor, and this kills me, that UFOs were responsible for the Maui fire. And I don't get off into like negative stuff. But I was kind of wanting to talk about UFOs again and UAPs. Now, it's potential that UAPs, which are Navy vehicles, you think of their Air Force, but some Navy high brass has claimed these as their own. Could be jointly owned by them. The Tic Tac and the gimbal is absolutely American equipment. And so this woman had caught some debris flying past an observatory up there, and for some weird reason, a car window super sparked on camera. Now, that could be a lightning bolt that goes off behind the camera and happens to be at the right angle to get into the lens of the surveillance camera. It could technically be some laser-mounted thing in some old station wagon that's firing on the ground. Why even create such an asset that if it gets caught in the fire, you have a problem getting the vehicle off the mountain? You got this laser in there. You know, nobody wants to do risk stuff like that. It was just a piece of debris that flew in front of the camera. It could be as small as your wallet, but it was the hokiest shit you've ever seen. Here's what's important for us. Since we don't organize, we just throw shit around, right? That's what the resistance does. You know, the French underground and any resistance you can call up in history was in your history books because they organized. They coordinated. We're not a resistance yet. We're just a bunch of people passing crap around. It helps. It really helps, but we're not really focusing properly. But what we have to do is once someone like Tim wet his pants, wet his bed at night pool, the absolute fucking shill of shills, dude. Once you realize that guy starts whining because the Georgia Guidestones got blown up, you have got to do everything in your power to keep that guy away from you. If you see him, and if someone's like having some sort of arousal because he was talking, you got to let him know. These are complete fucking shills that you have to just dismiss out of the food chain, right? So this woman I'd never seen before, but whoever she is, you just got to keep her stuff away from you because she is the disinfo person, either due to a super low IQ or she's like a Tim Pool who comes out of nowhere, fully financed, and can get on every fucking show on planet Earth, right? And he just talks a million miles a minute, wears his little beanie hat. And, it's just, guy disgusts me, man. Just stay away from him. You listen to that motherfucker. He's an 80-20, 80% truth, 20% bullshit kind of guy. Just be careful, man. One of the commenters said, I think something very intelligent, which is that when I mentioned the friend of mine that saw the vehicle take off from Area 51, it's a very valid comment. He said, your friend's just pulling your leg. And that's a valid point, that my friend could be pulling our leg. Now, here's the thing. That story happened the shooting either happened at the end of 2017 because the effects team finished up the film in 2018. This is probably 2017 shoot at least, right? Now that dude he has been a guy that can't accept any conspiracy of any kind. He's just a coward inside his heart. God bless him. And he tries to it's funny. It's really funny. Once you see a guy become a coward for the truth and then tries to be a tough guy when you mention the truth, you immediately know inside of him, you can knock him out with like a pinky. The guy's just like, he's a coward through and through. He's just a husk of a man. He couldn't defend himself in a fucking fist fight. It's one of those kind of things. So he doesn't quite go to that level, but it's funny if you ever have those guys, man, what are you talking about? We did go to the moon. It's like those guys are just ready to be you breathe on them and they pass out, right? This guy would not, if he was able to pull that scam on my other mutual friend, right? I know both of these guys, but I know one's like really closely. He would definitely swing back around for the I got you moment. I guarantee you, he'd be like, you believe that shit? Oh my God, right? But touche to the comment. I guess he could be doing the long play on that scam, but my buddy never came back to me and said, he was just bullshitting me. I think that'd be hilarious. I think if that was a joke, that would be really super funny that he put that in there. But it was not only him, it was another guy. So that it would be two of them holding the scam for, gosh, it's 2018, man, 5 years, just never coming up with the idea it was a hoax. I think that would be pretty hard to believe that these guys wouldn't come back for the kick you in the balls moment. I got you. And I'd probably have more respect for him, to be honest. Another subject I just want to bring up real quickly, because a lot of you comment about it. It's usually kind of when you find the show. Somebody said, look, man, I've been watching your show for 2 years. Really enjoy the content. And he goes, I just don't understand why you don't have 1 million subs. Well, obviously I'm super shadow banned because I'm also a statistician and I understand all the censoring mechanisms that could ever be put in place to screw with me, from the back end triggers that would cause the censorship to occur, from retiring old accounts. I mean, there's accounts on YouTube that just die off, right? If you have, again, 5,386 as of right now, what they do is they allow a few to come in and then they pull them down, or they'll just do a big retirement check on accounts and go, this person hasn't logged in 10 years, so we're going to just retire their account. Could be that they're not completely shut down, but they unsubscribe them from everything. Whatever. You are correct. I mean, for the absolute horse shit that has 100,000 subscriptions, I feel very complimented by YouTube that they feel like they need to do this. It's wonderful. It's like, that means I have been over the target every year I've been out. And the thing is this. First show is like, again, late June 2015, somewhere in there. I haven't had to apologize for misleading you guys yet. If anything, I'm feeling today like, my God, I told you guys about depopulation and Agenda 21 in 2015. I just did a huge Excel spreadsheet of every episode I've ever done that I get my hands on. Now, this is not counting probably losing 20 episodes, or at least holding back a few episodes because I didn't think they were strong enough. Probably at least 15, 20 of those. But I have done 762 episodes before this one goes out and before Kincaid goes out. There's a lot of like COOF episodes from 2020 that are all retired off the system. But if you really want to see a great archive of the entire channel, go to Odyssey, ADYSEE. Again, just go to deepthoughtsradio.com. Their login process sucks. They send you an email almost every time to verify your key. I don't go that often, but I went ahead and used it as the distribution mechanism for the last chaos report because it's super fast. The embed is really clean. And so it's just got, I noticed it has all the old chaos reports on there. I delete them off everything else, but it has them. Now, quite frankly, BitChute and Rumble probably have some of the old ones as well. Now, with the UAP thing, there's obviously two things going on that really you should focus on. The one that's obvious that everyone focuses on, as long as you understand it's a military piece of equipment that's flown exclusively over oceans, except for one base on the East Coast, which it was very close to the ocean. If it falls out of the sky because of a power problem, it falls into the water, and therefore they can go rescue it, and none of the footage would ever be released. Okay? Now, they obviously have it to a point where they believe that it's pretty bulletproof in terms of not falling out of the sky. But now think about it. They have got an anti-gravity, gravity well system working inside both vehicles. And it appears to be able to do exactly what we know UFOs do, which is to use gravity well systems to move extremely fast from point A to point B. It is the power supply that is more ingenious than the actual mechanism of creating an electromagnetic gravity well, for me personally. Wow, what the hell is powering these UAPs? They figured that out. Now, the scary thing is, who's controlling those systems? Because we were shown a demonstration. These vehicles slowed down slow enough that Top Gun pilots were allowed to see them, track them, fly after them, and even though they did move around and disappear off radar and then get recaptured, that was by design for sure. If they don't want you to see these vehicles, you'll never see them for more than a split second. And in a split second, you would question your own reality. I'll give an example. If they have a power supply that is so powerful, these things can fly around and be chased by the best of the best, Raptors, F-18s, or whatever, and nothing can catch them. Imagine that these units can be, it would seem like teleportation. It won't be, but because they will pass through the space in between. But imagine this mechanism is so strong, because gravity wells prevent the friction that would normally be exerted on a vehicle and tear it to pieces, right? If you take a vehicle that's made of anything man could make and you accelerate it instantaneously 18,000 miles an hour or 8,000 miles an hour, whatever, you're going to destroy the vehicle. There's nothing that can just do that instantaneously. Even these Aurora aircraft, you cannot just go, you're at 0 and now you're at 8,000. You can get to 8,000. You can get to 24,000. You can get to whatever the hell you want slowly over time. Let the friction build up on the outside of the vehicle. Use the friction to generate other power systems to protect the vehicle itself. But to just take a pill-shaped object, the Tic Tac or the gimbal, which is certainly not a system that is aerodynamic by nature, and pop at 8,000, it'll just explode. So you have to understand the gravity well system around it takes all the wind in the air, and aka ether by another name, and it goes around the vehicle. That's what a gravity well does. And for those of you who struggle with that definition, like, he's full of shit, go look at the quantum locking that happens in these superconductors where they put them on the Mobius strip, right? And it's this little piece of material with a little piece of block of dry ice on it to cool it off, right? The dry ice is there to combine with the electromagnetic field that's on the Mobius strip, which is a strip that's been cut and turned, so it's infinite. You know, both sides of the strip, it's infinite. It's a brilliant little MC Escher thing. It stays floating above the Mobius strip because the field around it is basically quantum blocking the ether. And so the ether is coming down to give it gravity, and it either goes through the object because the atoms aren't shaking and they're all nice and lined up like a liquid crystal watch display, or goes around the system, around the piece, thus creating lift and kind of suspending it. It's like literally hanging onto it. So you can do the same thing with the UAP. It's just going to take a hell of a lot of power. And that's what they figured out. And that's the thing that's like scary, right? If they're going to burn down the world to take it back, which is like ingenious. Oh my God. I mean, you've seen it, right? A fire takes out a forest, and then we go back, a few months later, and there's the little budding trees coming up, and we can plant them, right? If military doesn't step in quick, if we don't get some people to defect out of the system, if there's no military, if we don't get some consciousness to develop in people, or people simply say, look, I'm not signing the deal with the devil because that means I'm not going to the place I want to go after this life is over. Surely my life will end. There's no loyalty among thieves. And so anybody who thinks it's like, oh, I'm going to, sign up for this, and I'm Oprah Winfrey and I'm going to, get to grab a bunch of land in Maui or something. Her roof is not blue, by the way. It's fucking mean that keeps going around with some super blue hot rooftop. It's not her house, okay? Her house has black gray shingles. It's not even shaped like the stupid fucking meme. This idiot who passed it around, I said, look, this is not our house. Stop passing that crap around. There are blue roofs all over Maui. It's a thing. I went and took a shit ton of pictures of them using Google Earth. Well, I never said that it was her house. Like, yeah, okay, you get the house picture and her face. It's like, these are the disinfo scumbags that are out there. Or maybe they're just AIs. Who knows, right? Who knows? But imagine these UAPs pop into place at 8,000 miles an hour. There's no sound barrier break either, because it's basically shaping ether, the very fabric of existence. So it distorts it and puts it back in place as it moves. And so you don't get a big thunderous boom. UFOs have never been claimed to ever pop the sound barrier. They don't. If they were to move in any way, shape, or form, they're not displacing air like a F-18. They're not. Where it slams back together like a whip. There's a video going around, too, that a guy who supposedly worked in the South Pole was claiming that everything that they're using to basically take back the planet for themselves is all in the South Pole. And I thought, man, that is pretty brilliant. I mean, that is, quite frankly, if you want to put everything in a place where nobody can get to you, man, you even know where it is. And it's like, you might even have like a camera that's from space and you're looking right at it. And it's like, we have to stop these guys. It's like, well, good luck. Good luck. You can't even get there without them seeing you coming for hours and hours and hours. So what can you possibly do? You could be some billionaire with a super weapon and a fleet of G6s, and you won't be able to touch these guys. They'll see you coming. They'll wipe you out. Remember, Tesla created something that we call the death ray. He never called it that. But that's what it was. It's been in the game Red Alert by Westwood in 1993, 94. And the way that they had it in the game is exactly the way that he said that he was going to make it, which was a really tall, skinny Wardenclyffe tower. And it essentially did directed energy weapon stuff. It would just vibrate the bolts out of a plane. That's what he told the leaders of the world before World War II. He says, look, man, just build these all over your peaceful areas, and if anything comes at you from a buzz bomb or a V2, which didn't exist when he was having the conversation, we'll just take it out, man. And so nobody wanted to stop that war because people were going to make a shit ton of money off of it, so no one bought it. But that technology gets scooped up as soon as he dies in 45, right? Now, people have asked me, they killed him, right? It's like, well, maybe. He tried to cross the street in New York, got hit by a car. But he just basically bounced off the car. I think he broke a rib or something. He's a tough dude, man. Fucking tough guy. And he walked himself to the hospital, and then he went home and eventually passed within the week in his apartment. But he was like 84, 85, 86, somewhere in there. And it's like, so he was definitely, if you ever see his body at the time, he had lived a full life, man. His skin bag had done its full journey. Would they bump him off? Maybe. But it's almost like, imagine you're some secret agency and you take, because there's no agencies yet at all that are above ground, right? That are super secret and untrustworthy. But you just look at him on the ground and just go, that fucking guy? Really? What are we doing again? Really? They could have taken that guy and said, hey, we'll give you some money. And you got a new research project you can get into, and just pick something that's going to be not in your way. He goes off, and you get him out of, and he just dies of attrition, But maybe they killed him. I don't know. That equipment has not been lost. The inventions haven't been lost. The John J. Trump guy that came and took all the stuff, Trump's uncle, I think I got his name right. He was like a head physicist at MIT, and he goes down and gets it and hands it off. And of course, there's a bunch of rumors that he was able to decipher it fast enough on the spot to say, you're not allowed to have this tech. And so that the Trump family actually takes the tech and goes off and does other things. Now, whether or not, Tesla's created time travel or something like that, again, that would have been something very late in his life that he never told anybody about, because every time he took an interview, as I mentioned several times in the Tesla episodes, 2 hours long, he was very braggadocious if someone challenged his credibility or who invented what first. He always hated being marginalized like that. He's like, look, it's almost like, because he didn't have Wikipedia, right, that was actually trustworthy. Had they had something like that, someone would be able to look it up and go, oh, you did this. They never say something stupid. So back in the day, it was like, oh, I heard, was it Marconi created the radio? And he's like, yeah, and he used 49 of my patents. So hold this, boom, There's a Twilight Zone out there where a guy goes to a little town. I think I mentioned this about 10 episodes ago, but it's right along the lines of what the Tesla rumors suggest. Guy goes to this little town. This is in season 4 of Twilight Zone, which you can see up on Paramount Plus. And he just goes in to get some gas, man. And he's got this big fluffy dog. And this has got Scotty from Star Trek before Star Trek was out, just 2 years before it hit the air. It's pretty cool to see him in it. And his dog jumps out of the car while he's filling up with gas. And so he's trying to get his dog, and it scares this little girl playing in the front yard. She pulls out this little thing. It's just like a Star Trek thing, a little box with a little wire and and she hits the dog, and the dog vanishes. And he sees it, and he's like, what'd you do to my dog? And he grabs her, and she screams, and she goes inside. And then Scotty comes out, and he's the father. And he's like, what are you doing here, mister? And he's like, your kid, she did something to my dog. She pulled this piece of equipment, and it disappeared. So I'm looking for my dog. And he said, I doubt that, let's just look for your dog. And so he gets the guy to walk one way around the house, and Scotty goes around the back. Scotty pulls out the same piece of equipment and projects the dog back into life. Totally fine. Ruff, ruff. It goes around the corner. So anyway, they ask him to leave. You should go. Just get your gas and get out of here. Everything's good. Instead, he goes to a local hotel, and he starts sniffing around. There's a beautiful girl who works at the hotel. She's lying up a storm about the place is full, but nobody's there. All the keys are hanging up on the wall. And she's like, well, if everybody's here, then why no one has their keys? Everybody out somewhere, but the town's empty. And so he sniffs around too much, and they grab him. And they pull him into this room. And they tell him, look, man, here's the deal. You can't leave. He's like a reporter for a big newspaper in New York. He says, oh, yeah? Well, what are you going to do to stop me? And he's like, well, you saw what we did to your dog, right? Well, we could do it to you too. And they actually even show him. They beam him across the room. They basically tell him, look, this dude came through town a long time ago, and he had all this technology. And he bestowed that technology on us, but he said, look, you're the keepers of my technology from now on. After I'm dead and gone, because the guy was really old on his deathbed, as legend goes. He said, the world out there isn't ready for this technology. Even though this technology could help the world, starvation, death, disease, they'll turn it into a weapon. So don't let them have it. And that's 1964, that story's being told. If Trump's uncle goes into Tesla's apartment and finds I guarantee you they were big giant crates, because back in the day, that's what people had. My grandparents had crates, like shipping containers from boats, all right? That I don't even know how old these things were. And it's crazy is when you're young, you're like, oh, this is gross, this is old. And man, at this age, I would have freaked out to see these containers and try to figure out how fucking old these things were. I'm sure these containers are in my grandmother's basement were probably 150 years old, if not older. Her grandfather, who's the guy I keep telling you lived 101 years, that dude came over here in 1834. It was the last family to get over here. And so I think they're probably his containers, man. Anyway, so this dude, Trump's uncle goes in and looks at this stuff. You have to understand the logistics of the situation would be that he'd have to translate the cryptic paperwork of Tesla super quick. And unless Tesla's writing it out, time travel right here, and he opens up a box with the foam inset, and it's got some fucking, Men in Black shiny thing in it. You just don't know what you're looking at. And it could all be on paper too, because Tesla was aging things in his brain for years before he built it. You remember when Tesla built something, he even said in his interviews, I hold it in my head until I finish it. And he goes, I've never had a piece of equipment not work the first day that I connect it together and push the on button. I mean, ask any one of your friends and family that do electronics or programming. It never works the first time. When it's especially like a never before invented piece of equipment. That's what I'm really trying to say. So somehow the military has either reverse engineered real craft. And I do believe that we do have incidents, but you have to understand, let's say that Roswell was real. Puget Sound was real, but we didn't recover anything from it. A bunch of people saw the Puget Sound thing. Broke a guy's arm, killed a dog, broke a kid's arm, killed a dog. I mean, he took photographs of it. A dozen people see this. It's like a bay up in Seattle, or Washington, Washington State. I didn't mean to say Seattle. But Roswell has a crash. It's witnessed by a ton of people, man. So if you had one recovered craft, that's all you need. You don't need more craft. You might actually find more craft. It might be an archaeological dig. It could be more falling out of the sky for some reason. I do find it hard to believe that a vehicle would have any anomaly introduced by the U.S. military, because there's nothing more formidable and crazy and chaotic than wherever the hell these people come from. Interdimensional travel, outer space travel. By the way, there are 2 episodes, if I'm right, having just typed them all in. I typed them all in by hand. That is, does space exist? If you're a person that doesn't believe that space exists, although you look up at stars and you've got some other explanation for them, I'd love to hear it. I've got 2 episodes about that, so if that angers you, me mentioning space, well, go watch my 2 episodes. I'm with you. No one ever dreams about space, not even guys with 25 years of space special effects backgrounds with Emmys and Oscars. They don't dream about it. And you would think your mind would manifest a dream, even if it's complete fiction and it doesn't exist. You sit on a project where you're building Millennium Falcons and you're CGing these things and the space battles and all the map paintings. You'd think that Richard Edlund would have a dream about being in space. They don't. None of them do. The young ones, the old ones, they don't have dreams about being in space. Although I had a dream the other day. Oh my gosh, man. I haven't done a dream episode in a long time. There's just got to be a theme to it and stuff. But I'm going to share with you this dream that was so real. It was one of those dreams when you wake up, you're kind of like, whoa, am I here? Am I there? Am I here? Am I there? That kind of thing. I was driving down Beach Boulevard here, which T-bones right at the ocean. And it's like a kind of a golden hour moment of the day, which means the sun's not quite setting yet, but everything's gold, beautiful, right? Just like they did with all the movies, right? And so you come down this hill in the last descent, and I'm on the phone with a friend, and I notice, because we have the San Diego Naval Base down there and Air Force Base, all these, we've been having some flyovers because something was going to happen. I don't know. We had Blackhawks and F-18s, and they kept telling us, hey, these are things that are going to be flying around, so don't freak out, just before the hilarious hurricane. I'm so glad it didn't do anything. Now, what I see in front of me are two vehicles that look like stealth bomber kind of shaped vehicles. In retrospect, when I replay the footage in my head, because I can still see it like I really saw it in real life, this is the crazy thing. It looked like these things had gone up. They were flying down the coast, which is how we see everything happen, right? Unless the F-18s, they come from inland out. But these things, like they were stalling out and crashing into the ocean. They did drop into the ocean. There's two of them. First, and I'm looking at this going in my car, and I'm looking at this going, oh my God, this is right in front of me, like just down the highway, ocean, and it might be a quarter mile out from the coast, right? From where the water starts. And so my friend is talking on the phone, and they had just hit that point where I had been talking, and now I've gotten to the point where the conversation's interesting for them. And so they're like going into second gear and really starting to go, and you know it's going to be a paragraph of talking, right? And I'm seeing something that's like unworldly. So I drive my car straight, and right at that point, you can go across the highway, Highway 1, and then you can park in the parking lot right there. And so I just do that. I go straight ahead. But now I'm like, screw all the rules, man. I'm just going to get my car as close to this as possible. So I got my phone with me. I get out there, and now the vehicles have turned, and they're basically landing, like amphibious landing on the beach in front of me, and this big giant doors are opening up for both sides. So I got one kind of to my left, and the first one I saw is literally centered pretty much on me, just coincidentally, right? All this personnel is getting out of the vehicle. It's almost like Men in Black, the neuralizer, right? Where I'm like, poof, yeah, what you saw was a dream, and da-da-da-da, right? So they're starting to set up shop on the beach, like they're bringing out equipment and putting it down, like building a little command station or something. And the one that's off to my left is a whole segment of the wingspan of like something the size of a stealth bomber. But what I realized when I went inside this thing, which I'll get to in a second, it was like probably 4 times the width of a stealth bomber with this really round front end. Like, it's just a huge flying wing. Huge, okay? So I tell my friend, who I would never talk like this to, but they just won't be quiet. And I'm in shock. I said, shut the fuck up. I got, stealth bombers crashed on the ocean. I'm right here, right now. I will call you back. Ting. Turn my phone into like video mode, and now I'm just taking photographs. I'm videoing. I mean, this is all real time, unlike a dream. Okay. Yeah, I'm missing certain senses, of course. My feet aren't stepping on sand necessarily. Time is pretty real time. But this dude, like, there's all kinds of staff, women and men, and they're dressed in like a different garb, almost like a flight suit that is very optimized, right? There's not a lot of pockets and shit all over. It's like one insignia on their chest. And this dude comes out to me in civilian clothing. And he walks up to me. He's like this really nice guy. I could tell he's kind of the dude in charge because he's not dressed in a military outfit, for one. And he comes up to me, and he's bouncing through the crowd, and there's not that many of us. There might be like 6 citizens and maybe a dozen of these personnel, and they're kind of done but they're bringing crap out. Like, guys are carrying crates out and stuff, like a Star Wars thing or something. Anyway, this dude comes up and he goes, I need you to come with me. I saw what you did. And I'm thinking, okay, I took photographs. Okay, of course. And I said, okay. I said, well, you can delete them out of my phone if you want, And the thing is, I'm looking at the magnitude of what's going on here. It's like, there's no way I have any power to like say, screw you, man, I'm taking my own stuff. Man, it's do or die. He doesn't really acknowledge that that's the problem. He goes, you come with me. And so I go up this ramp into this freaking ship, man. And it's like, I realize at that point, I'm only going into its right side to my vision, the left side. The ship is way off to my right, and it's just disturbingly gigantic, right? So I go inside, and he's it's like he didn't expect me to cause him a problem. So he's trying to insert me into whatever the hell they're doing here, right? So he's like, I'm over here, and he goes like, sit right here. He introduces me to this woman who's got like long brown hair. She's got kind of a lab coat on, but it's kind of flowing. It's not all buttoned up or anything. She has civilian clothes underneath. She's just a really nice woman, not domineering at all. And he's just kind of bouncing around, and he's trying to take care of his agenda and me, but he won't tell me what I did wrong. But he's like, okay, I'm going to leave you with her. I'll be right back, is what he tells me. And now I'm looking at the inside of this kind of corridor version of the ship, because there's a big room I'm going to end up in, which is just jaw-dropping. I mean, damn. Anyway, I said, well, what do you do here? And she goes, well, I really am not supposed to show you because you're not even supposed to be in here. And I was like, I kind of smiled at her like, well, I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to leave. And, who am I going to tell anyway, right? She goes, okay, well, I guess I could show you, kind of something like that. So we walk about 30 feet down this corridor, and it's just it's like a little lab room, with like white tables. And she shows me this little bowl with these copper fittings. Maybe I can render one for you so you can see it, but it's like this corkscrew, about a quarter inch thick pipe that turns into kind of a flower at the end. And there's a bunch of them sitting in a bowl. And I'm looking at her, I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm just thinking, she's not telling me what these are for, but they're copper, so it looks like electrical property they're trying to preserve. And then there's this coiled motion with this flower tip. And I said, this is for like power distribution, isn't it? And I think she said something like that is what she said. Something like that. And so we're walking back to the original, like kind of like center area that had a desk as well. Almost like a greeting table, but not. And so I start asking her about whether or not that in this giant vehicle of amazingness, do they study ethereal technology? Do they acknowledge that ether is the way that everything works? Do you have another name for it? I'm trying to get out like a little piece of information from them, right? So I could bring it to you guys. And she goes, well, it's like, it's all real time, dude. It's not like some jumpy, weird dream. And she goes, well, I'm not sure I follow you. So in order to explain this, this duality between ether being repurposed with different names, just in case they're using ethereal theory, but they're calling it different things, I start this analogy with her. I said, look, when they teach electrical theory, they teach anode theory, which is positive to negative, but everything actually flows in a cathode way, which is negative to positive. And she actually, when I said, cathode, she immediately, talked over me. She goes, oh yeah, because it does, like what you're saying is it's negative to positive. I said, yeah. And so just the second I'm getting her to that point where maybe she'd comment and we go to the next level on this ethereal conversation, this really tall guy, like short brown hair, but kind of flowy, it wasn't like completely sawed down like a military haircut. He's got a lab coat on as well. It's open in the front, but he's probably about 6'4". Handsome guy, but he's kind of like a foreign, maybe scientist of some sort, right? He's got this accent. And he goes, Dr. So-and-so wants you to come with me, which is this dude who's disappeared. So that's when we march another, 20, 30 feet to the opening of this big center part of the vehicle. And I walk into this thing. Now, here's what I'm not going to render this because it'll take too damn long to model this, but to do it any justice. But imagine a cathedral sort of stadium seating situation where it's just like every other NASA or SpaceX thing, but instead of everybody on the same floor, It's like a college lecture room. So there's a huge row of computers with screens, all with cubicle walls between them, just little dividers, about 3-foot dividers, right? And there's nothing behind your monitor. So your monitor actually allows you to view down into the next row, and then the next row, next row, next row. And it's probably, man, like 50 feet between where we are at the top if you went straight out to the edge. Now, the edge is this beautiful, rounded front piece of this plane. And it's like probably 25, 30 feet top to bottom out there. And it's all round. It's just amazing. And the furthest corner from me is probably damn near a football field away from me, right? And what they have done is they've embedded into that wall sort of it could be projection, but it looks like LEDs that are just curved with the wall. And it's like there's very precise rectangles every 3 or 4 feet to show some statistical data. Now, the problem is that there's a monitor in front of me to see the direct center of the room. I need to stand up to look over it. Now, this guy is trying to ask me some scientific questions. It's like they're trying to give me a really fast IQ test for some reason. The only thing I could speculate in like a movie script thinking would be, oh, it's like a Ben in Black quiz real quick. Are you smart enough to stay on board? Sort of thing, because I'm already exposed, right? It's not like they knew who I was or anything. This wasn't happening for me in any way, shape, or form. But here's the thing. I've had a perfectly fine conversation with the guy. I've had a perfectly fine conversation with my friend on the phone. And with this woman. I mean, it was like, imagine just walking with someone and talking, and it's just continuous. There's no jumpiness. We're not like teleporting with rooms. The rooms aren't morphing like a dream, right? Which is always what happens with me. If I walk in a room, walk out, and walk in, it's different. It's just what a dream does. This place is locked. It's quantum locked in its reality, right? Now I'm sitting in a chair that's been pulled up to his cube. This dude's tall as shit, man. He looks very human. No wide eyes or anything like that. And he's talking to me. Now, here's the interesting thing, because I ended up waking up at this moment because the room I'm in, there was noise. And this dude has got an accent I have never heard before. And it's so pronounced, I cannot understand what he's saying to me. I can understand about every second or third word. And he's trying to ask me a super technical question, I think. And so I'm looking at him, and it's funny, when you're younger, you don't have a really polite way of saying, man, I can't understand what the fuck you're saying. I'm much better at that. And I said, I'm really sorry, but I'm struggling to understand what you're saying. I'm sorry. Your accent is throwing me off. And so he repeats it, and it even gets, and I'm staring right at his face. I mean, he's like a foot from my face. And he's just trying to ask me, and then I woke up. And now, and I was by myself, and so something was happening outside or something. And now I'm like, it's just like somewhere in time where Christopher Reeve pulls out of the past, and here he is about to, be married to this woman, and he's like, oh my God, my whole reality just disappeared, man. It was like I was in the Matrix, and in a different Matrix, and I'm now in this Matrix, and I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm sitting there utterly stunned for 5, 10, 15 minutes where I live. It's like, oh my God. I just thought I'd share that with you. That was, and I thought about you guys. I was like, man, I gotta talk about this one on the show. It is a dream that seems like it happened, and it's, there are certain dreams that you just never forget. It's just like that really took place. And I'm trying to parse why the hell that is. Why are certain dreams, like I had a dream when I was 17 years old, living with my grandparents, my last year of high school. And I had a baby daughter in this hibernation box, and it was like a little bit bigger than a shoe box. And it was this box that you put your baby in it, and it's kind of form fitted around your kid, and it gives your kid oxygen and food and all this kind of stuff. And I remember looking down, it was kind of creepy. And I remember just seeing that in the front room upstairs in what we call the living room. I was 17. I can think about it right now like it happened 2 minutes ago. Why are some dreams like that and other dreams are just aloof, seem like a dream, But I have to say, like in the last year and a half, 2 years, my dreams have been just incredible. By the way, I've had we've discussed the idea that some people dream and some people don't. Interesting little factoid here. One of my friends just stopped drinking. And this person drank, a 6-pack a day, at least. Now stopped. It took 30 days of pounding and pounding and pounding. And now I'm hearing, I had a dream last night. I dreamed this, I dreamed that. And I'm thinking, wow, the brain gets damaged by drinking. It just does. Your brain will make new neurons, so you can have a little sip here and there. But man, if you're a chronic drinker, you will eventually go crazy. And you will get depressed because your ability to grasp reality and deal with the obstacles, it gets less and less. And so the reason why you're drinking just gets worse and worse and worse, right? So a little note to self, if you're drinking a beer every day or whatever, because that's your little routine, you don't dream, and you miss dreaming, try just not drinking and see what happens. 30 days, took my friend 30 days, but they were pounding hard. But just to finish up the quick comments about the channel and censorship and all that good stuff, honestly, whatever is triggering you to enjoy the channel, whatever's special about it, try to put that into words, tell a friend. If nothing else, just say, could you please do me a favor and subscribe? And then we'll come back whenever you think about it and we'll see if you're still subscribed. The idea that's interesting about YouTube and it's deliberate unsubscribing of people is that's just an absolute bona fide fact that you could bring into a court of law and say, this company is disturbing my brand by unsubscribing people maliciously. It would be like when you buy a house in America, there's this little logo that goes at the bottom of every advertisement. It's a picture of a house, and it says something about equal opportunity, house lender. It has to be on everything. It has to be. I think it's law. And it basically says if you're black, if you're Chinese, if you're Persian or whatever, white, no one can deny you an opportunity to buy this house. And if you catch anybody fucking with the loan, fucking with the opportunity in black and white, the house is yours, man, because by the time you get done with their ass, they will have spent the house purchase price to defend themselves in court for, discrimination. You're going to have a good attorney, but that's what would take place. By the way, I've gone with color for now. It's kind of cool you guys have endured the black and white thing for absolutely forever. I might go back, but I feel like for now it's summertime, got a base on me. Got a whole bunch more tan at Disneyland for sure. The black and white thing is my thing in life. I love black and white film. I've collected things that are black and white at times, like everything's black and white in one particular genre. And so when I started doing the show and I started looking at the fact that every time I set up my camera was a different time of day, I didn't like the fact that my shows were going to have to be color corrected constantly. And that's just a fighting, diminishing game. The content's more important than any video production thing. So I created that black and white filter. I'm like, hey, it's really me anyway, right? Like, I'll give you a silly one. When Disneyland was doing its button thing, where you collect buttons, I collected only the black and white buttons. And I finally got like really super eclectic, gigantic buttons that were black and white. So while the summer's cooking, we'll let some color through the door. I think it'll also help newcomers because when they see the black and white thing, they, I don't blame them. They're like, I look at some of the old episodes and my God, my hair was like a mess in some of these shows. It's just like this giant mane on me. And of course, you got to appease a little bit if we're trying to expand into different brain trusts. You just have instincts and preferences. There's nothing wrong with those. They just are what they are, right? What's interesting is that since their plan has been moving into full effect, their sort of psyop-y dump of a brand new conspiracy seems to have died down quite a bit, right? They were in absolute overdrive in 2015 with just dumping new stuff out there like crazy, from flat earth to no forest on flat earth to time traveling celebrities to all kinds of stuff. And it seems to have just utterly died out as they just focus on destroying the planet. I think the thing that's missing from people's vocabulary, or we could say nomenclature, is the word war. That's what's going on right now, guys. It's like we're at war. It's just asymmetrical war. It's war. You know, if you think your neighborhood is safe, it's not. It doesn't have to make any sense at all for them to, like, again, take these Tic Tacs, different types of shapes you've never seen before. And quite frankly, they don't have to let you see the vehicle as long as they can create the magnetism field around it to allow the light that's from above to spread to the bottom. You'd look up at it and you wouldn't see it. It's invisible. It could show up and start a fire. Who knows? I mean, just boom, bam. It could just nail you personally. It's, I think they're at a point now where they can do, the only option is military, because the only thing that knows military is military. But military is also very compartmentalized. So you might have conventional military that feels very confident, and then all of a sudden this fucking fleet of weird UFOs, UAPs come out of nowhere, and they're doing stuff to military they can't even conceive of it, right? And so they're dead just as fast as they're out. So, I mean, you know, brace for that too. You got to get rid of the leaders. That's the thing. If the leaders don't exist, then the UAPs never get launched. It's just like every movie you've ever seen. When Clue dies in Tron Legacy, well, he's got everyone waiting in a warehouse to invade the world, but they don't go into the world because Clue is destroyed. At least you think he is. No, he's dead. The new guy's going to be called Ares, and he's going to be a fucking horrible copy of Clue. Oh, that new movie's, if they don't change that script, it's going to be awful. So, yeah, you know, we got to brace for some other weird stuff. But, I mean, it's like, man, they got to start pulling the trigger on fighting back in a big way. They just need to lock down the planet for a month. Clean the whole joint up. Broadcast over, I don't know, some shortwave radio thing. Don't worry, this person's arrested. I'm still getting those stupid fucking feeds from people. Bill Gates has been murdered, and he was taken to Gitmo and murdered. And it's just like all these people are supposed to be dead. They're just fucking buying the whole universe. It's like, man, if I was Bill, I would pay that person to spread bullshit that I'm dead. That's great. Just keep showing up on TV, and then also pump the clone theory, because that's fucking great, you know. In some ways, we have no technology at all that people are starting to say we got all this, like, infinitely beyond. Like, Westworld is like supposedly yesterday's technology for some of these folks, and it just be like, you can just sit them down and just ask them a tiny little quiz about reality, any factoid of any kind. What's 50% of a dollar? Well, clones exist. It's like, okay. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Again, another one that's died down is the Mandela effect. You know, there were all these occurring things, and of course it's all linked in theory to the CERN Hadron Collider. I'm not keeping tabs on the collider. I feel like I have to do a new episode because I did it really early in season 1 when I had my mouth up to the microphone too close. Again, I don't believe for a second that anyone in charge of the CERN Hadron Collider is looking for the Big Bang. It's absolutely not a possible event in history. It's just not a possible event. I saw on that note, I will say that I saw some interview with Elon Musk. And it's just, I sat today in a back patio at my other lounge and listening to this sort of wannabe Hollywood guy. I looked him up because he said his name. He was ordering some food to go, or food to be brought to the place, right? I won't mention his name, but he mentioned himself, and I'm sitting right at my computer, so I just bring him up on IMDb. And the last thing he worked on was 2018. Before that was 1991. You know, it's like he's just talking shop like he's on every fucking movie on planet Earth. I'm sitting there going, oh my God. But he was like, he mentioned, you know, he was nervous Nelly. Like, he was so full of shit that his way of covering for, he's with two old guys. One guy's 87, the other guy's his son. And he just uncontrollably laughing like fucking Kamala douchebag, right? When you're lying, you get to this point where some people giggle and gaggle. That's why Kamala's constantly doing that, because she just knows she's out of her league completely. She's just not used to being in a room without 3 or 4 guys inside of her. She's a complete piece of shit. And I've got friends of mine that cover it who've interviewed her 10 times and said that, yeah, she's smarter than Pelosi, but dumb as a bag of hammers. But, you know, they talk about the Ice Age thing, and Musk was talking about the Ice Age, and it's like, the problem that we've got in this world is that Musk, who was also this guy was talking about, just mention him constantly. Guys know no fucking idea what he's talking about. It's hilarious. You guys, if you had watched my shows on AI, quantum computing, and you heard this guy talk, you would have been able to serve him lunch 10 to 1. It would have been funny. Because he's misinforming these other dudes. He's trying to freak them out like he's the big fucking AI guy. He's a set designer. He's a set builder. And those guys are great. They're amazing. He is a single individual. I'm not insulting at all the profession. Anyway, just trying to keep the Ice Age mechanism in your history. You need to wash that out of your history. These things, yeah, does ice glaciers get gigantic and carve out areas and then recede and then go? Yeah, you're seeing it happen right now. But no Ice Age ever got to the equator of the Earth, right? And Elon Musk was like, hey, the ancients were able to move the poles. And it just get you thinking that, again, history only goes back to the Ice Age and stops. And so you don't expect to find any history back there. You want to know why the man's history is fucked up? I mentioned this several times. Just wanted to remind you because there's an agenda with making you believe that they don't have history back further. That there wasn't a continuous history by the Egyptian area of the world with perhaps that pre-civilization called the Kemets, right? But there's some guys out there that aren't just Graham Hancock that have realized that, look, man, the pyramids don't have hieroglyphs inside. Most of the writing inside the pyramids were written by Europeans. You know, I mean, just scumbags just doing graffiti on the inside tomb walls. I mean, I understand wanting to make your mark and stuff, but it's like you were writing on like basically alien artifacts, man. It's like let's say that they have what Bob Lazar calls the sports model in area or S4, right? Let's just say, oh, that's real. It would be like going to S4 and looking at 9 crashed vehicles. Maybe the 9th one isn't crashed, and there's fucking graffiti on it from the scientists who were trying to figure out the antimatter engines. It's like that's how lowbrow the reality of the pyramids being savaged by European morons, right? And maybe locals that do it too. You go to Rome today and it's like fucking kids in Rome are doing graffiti on the Colosseum. I mean, it's just like, and the amazing structures of all of them. And you're just like, you took out a fucking spray paint can and you thought it was a good idea to spray paint on a fucking stone that's like as old as time itself. I mean, like the proverbial time of Christ was when this stone was stuck in the spot it's in, or even 1,000 years before that, and you thought it was a good idea to spray paint it. Wow. I mean, the penalties on that should just be horrendous. What's interesting about history is that it's like several areas of science in general. We are trying to infer what history was by looking at what remains. You know, it's like a Dell logic problem. You don't get all the facts. You get enough facts that if you keep cross-referencing the facts, you can fill in the spots that you don't have direct empirical data on. And so just looking and then comparing notes and talking, the amount of data they've been able to figure out about the world is astonishing. The whole Tartarian thing. I don't know if I believe, and I know I don't believe, a ton of the Tartarian theory where they're really trying to talk about the P.O. box where the Tartarians came from. I don't give a shit about that. Who fucking cares? If you want to say the Tartarians are from a place, then I want to see the ruins of a city that we'd never found before with super sophisticated columns, the Parthenon type of architecture before Greece is even founded, and the word Tartarian across the top. Let's at least get to that point before you start saying that random spot is where these people were. However, The movement has an amazing charter, which is let's look at all the old photographs of everywhere, including photoreal paintings of various areas. The painting of Chicago, supposedly, in the 1840s? Is that right? Or 1740s? No, 1840s. 1830s, excuse me. It's like a plain with nothing there. And then by like 1875 or so, you got a city so packed, it's like New York and Paris mixed together. In 40 years? 40 years, you get a New York City out of thin air. New York City's 100, 200 years old, right? Tesla came to New York City in the 1870s and was like, this place is huge. And then it just kept going and kept going. These stories of cows kicking over lanterns and burning down entire cities sounds a bit like what's going on now, right? I'm going to put a little footnote here on this episode about the color blue and lasers, because it's a big thing. And that theory hadn't been basically debuted, at least to me, before I did the last Chaos Report for August. It does look like that's a real thing. The biggest... Out of all the things you've seen, there's umbrellas that are blue, and there's a car. That's pretty amazing, but the big one is the car that's parked in a whole line of cars. It's actually parallel parked, because I thought it might have been a car from someone who drove to the scene to take photographs. Once you look at it, it's parallel parked. And I don't think anyone's parallel parking after the accident, right? After the thing that happened, right? The attack. It looks like that's a very real thing. Now, of course, when that's revealed in the Simpsons episode I talked about, I said the wrong thing. The Simpsons episode that has a town getting destroyed is because of a laser. I didn't say that. I said fire, and I meant to say laser. And that when it's all over and you see the town, when it's done being destroyed, there's a big blue, looks like a umbrella wrapped up or something weird, but it doesn't get burned, right? So it's like, again, the stuff's all broadcast to you, predictive programming. And you know what's really strange is I will not give that show any time at all. But some of you watch it most likely, and it's like, here's what I don't know. Why is it that we only go back to episodes after something has been predicted and it's already happened? Why aren't there people that love the show, watch it all the time because they just can't stop, or they watch it because they're looking for stuff, right? Keep looking at everything that could be a prediction of what happens and then line it all up in some database on some WordPress website and say, okay, these are the prediction models. Here's the Nostradamus model of what we think is going to occur. Fires are everywhere right now, aren't they? It's crazy. You're going to see a bunch of that. But winter's coming too. So is it going to slow down for winter? Because we know what's coming here. They're going to try to do that thing again, and I don't know a single soul that's willing to put up with it. It's very important in September. If restrictions occur, you can't stop an airline from not flying. You can't stop a business from closing. It's a big commercial corporation. Whoop-de-doo. But you can definitely prevent yourself from complying. So it'll be interesting to see if organizations that help enable them, like police forces, are willing to go a second round of a total embarrassment. Oh, India. I promised I'd talk about India landed on the moon. Oh my gosh. Have you seen their CG? Oh my gosh. It's so hilarious. This sort of Masonic vehicle that lands, it's shaped like the Masonic symbol. It's just missing the G at the bottom. And I don't think they're proliferated over there, but wow. Unbelievable bunch of bullshit. And it's just like no photographs, no nothing. It's like going to the moon is, it's just like, I feel like there's an algorithm, like I told you, there's an episode I did, NASA for Sale. Go watch it, dude. You'll love it. Okay. The theory is this has been packaged up. You're a third world country, pretend to be a first world country. You want to get into first world territory, China? So just buy this little package. It costs you a few billion, or you have to forgive us for billions of dollars we borrowed from you, trillions or whatever. The rocket that launched off Earth was just so teeny tiny, it was laughable. Maybe it's the size of the Saturn V, but it looks like it's about a third the height of Saturn V. And, suddenly they're on the moon. It's just like the algorithm could be like, and I don't mean to diss any civilization of any kind. India is a gigantic country that has surpassed China in population. Obviously, there are uber geniuses, and there's folks like normal people like here in the United States that'll believe anything. And so they have to do like a ratio of like, does your society on average, is the average mean intelligence low enough that they'll believe in this crap? In America, it's probably still pretty low. It's probably still possible, obviously, right? We're still the minority knowing that they didn't go, that there's a bunch of the science is just completely fabricated, right? And so they do their thing. It's like everyone's been to the moon, but no one put a man up there since. I had a friend of mine, a woman actually, who I just don't know too many females that talk about the moon thing. They just don't give a fuck, which is really fucking weird. Like, all you ladies don't care. And of course, the women that are attracted to this show get it, right? It's just a random friend of mine, and she was like, it's just, you're right. She goes, we didn't go. It's like, how come no one's ever gone back? This is ridiculous. It's the only thing we've never done. And it's like, she hasn't seen any Bart Sibrel stuff at all. And I said, yeah, it's right? It's pretty nuts, and I just left it at that because she had seen the light enough with whatever material she had ingested to know that we just didn't go. And it was all based on the fact that the India thing had been claimed, and that triggered her brain to think about it again and just kind of go, this hokey ass, my God, we're talking sophomoric high school CG render of this ridiculous looking craft headed towards the surface of the moon. It was just like, it was so horrible. It's like horrible times horrible. It's like, India, come on. Jesus, don't you? They have special effects wizards over there. You've seen their movies, the Bollywood shit. They have Bollywood movies that are 20 years old with near T2 CG. Like, what the hell is this thing? Even just a flight simulation of what it, like, hey, this isn't the real thing, but this is to show you, like what NASA does, right? And SpaceX, they go, hey, we'll just blow up shit, and grandma will think she's looking at fucking live action SciCam, like some other satellites filming the landing. But I want to close on something that I was tempted to make an entire episode about, but I think it'd be boring as shit. So I'm just going to close on this. And it has to do with, I think, a new level of reveal for what cell phones are doing to men. And I can't say that the females I experience in this world that are addicted to telephones, it's a complete divorce from reality. If a woman has a phone in my world, we're talking restaurants, just seeing girls walking. I walk on the beach and shit, and so I see this all the time. If a woman looks into a telephone, her brain is off, and she's looking at that phone. If you could literally go, "You're a whore," and they won't even hear you. It's like they're just off, man. Their whole world is in that phone. Men do it too, a little bit less than women in my area of the world, right? However, there's something that men are doing that women aren't doing, and it's getting to be almost utterly chronic in this area of where I live in Southern California. And that is, men are losing patience with basic communication. I will have someone ask me a question, like, because they know I'm the guy with a bunch of different views on things, right? I won't say answers. Mark, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think of this? They ask me all these questions, right? Different lounges and stuff. Now, the second I start answering, they've asked me to give them information from my brain. I think I try to pick the best words to make the sentences as short as possible. It's the art I've learned from writing screenplays and just overall communicating on this show. I try not to loop myself on a single show. I mention stuff from other shows because I think it's important. I want to imprint it in your brain to remember, to think about it, right? Very intentional algorithm I'm doing. Anyway, I start answering the question. These dudes, I just watched like the pitch mound clock on these guys' fucking brains, man. It's like they got 30 seconds to listen, and it's just tick, 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 tick. About 8 seconds they can't listen to another human being speak. I watch them do it to each other. I watch them do it to me. And they start talking over what I'm saying to them. And this is like I'm hitting the critical crescendo of the information that they're looking for. The cause and effect model of why I'm saying what I'm saying. I think it's going to be this because, and as soon as I get to because, and it's just like and sometimes they will talk about kind of what we're talking about, and other times it's fucking non sequiturs to something completely different or loosely related. And I mentioned it to a friend of mine today. She works retail at a place that I go to regularly. And I said, do you notice this? And man, you should have seen the look on her face, man. She's just like, oh, yes. She goes, that's happening. I said, yeah. You know, it's like you could pick on drunks. Drunks repeat themselves. It's an unbelievable thing how they repeat and repeat and repeat. I mean, like we're fucking talking 10 times in 10 minutes just saying the same shit. This cell phone thing is so paralyzing the brain. And the thing is, I get into phones too because I have to review the Telegram channels I subscribe to because they have some decent content in them. I'm having to download crap, move stuff over. Sometimes I capture the text and move it over with it. Very rare. I have other websites I go to that have some pretty wild stuff on them, and I'll download those videos. So I'm working on phones a lot as well. I can lose an hour on a phone pretty easily, but I can still communicate after I get out of the phone. The sad thing is that the reality of the situation is that a lot of people have transferred their entire work environment into the telephone, meaning they can't complete their tasks and get paid without using their telephone. Yes, they could carry around an air book or something else. I mean, tablets are just touchy things. They're not really typing things unless you got a keyboard attached to it. So I have friends of mine that literally have to use their phone to know whether or not they got to make a phone call, to coordinate some shipment or something like that. And it's a sad thing. It gives them mobility to move around throughout the day, but it becomes this rope around their neck with a stake in the ground. This 87-year-old dude was actually kind of cute today because he talked about working in the Navy, and he was responsible for GPS tracking of people who fell off a boat or got lost or something like that. And he was talking about just how amazing it is for him to see GPS real time on a telephone because he's 87 years old. He's like, man, when I was in the Navy, he goes, I had to do all the calculations, and he goes, we could have a plane crisscrossing the ship I'm in to give me more coordinates, and I'd have to take his coordinates, our coordinates, and constantly do this math and math and math. So it's a smart dude, right? He says, no, I just look at a phone and it's there. And he goes, it feels like I'm in Star Trek, you know? So it's very endearing to hear his explanation, but at the same time, he was as lucid as could possibly be. Very animated guy, did not move around like he was getting old at all. Kind of a Clint Eastwood kind of guy, right? In fact, he moved better than Clint, and his voice wasn't fucked up. But I think most of you are completely in tune with the fact that you got to keep tabs on how much you're being transformed. But my concern is this. These transformations that happen, especially with alcoholics, they don't realize they're losing their brains because the circuit that would discern a lack of capability is also being destroyed. And so we have to be careful. And, like I told you guys a long time ago, I stayed out of weed for a really long time. And about 29 years old, I was recommended that I don't smoke as much. And I smoked a little bit. And I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. And I was smoking a bowl or two every day. And one of my best friends in the entire world, I was in a kitchen at a party. I wasn't high or anything. But he looked at me and he goes, you're not as sharp as you used to be. I said, what? He said, you used to be really quick-witted and sharp, and you're not that way anymore. And man, that's all I had to hear. The brain is a magical thing. It will get trained in 2 seconds. And again, remember, the whole flickering screen thing is designed to create a state of suggestibility for your brain, paralyzing you to take in information at a particular emotional algorithm, or I should say almost like electrical charge, aka level of trauma and realism, such that you believe it or not believe it. And so they're trying to tell everybody something is real when it's not. And if you're weak-minded, it goes right in there long term. And this is above and beyond your own gullibility. It feels true, is what people might say. And we have truth that feels true, and we have lies that feel like lies. But when we're getting, and that's usually when you speak, you know whether or not you're lying or telling the truth. But when you're taking information from the outside without the context of your own empirical experiences, you have to trust the medium that you're getting. Marshall McLuhan, right? You know, when Marshall McLuhan says, medium is the message, that's what he coined the phrase medium, right? He said to you, it's going to be more vital that you pay attention to the medium by which you get your information than the information that you get. And this is not an idiot. This guy knew that getting bad yellow journalism was horrible. He knew that. But he's telling you that the mechanism that you're getting it by is actually more important. And at first, I didn't quite get that whole thing. And eventually, when I realized that I'd already done episodes about, this is back in MK Ultra radio days, episodes about the fact that your television was flickering at 60 frames a second, and you were sold this bullshit that if it didn't flicker 60 frames a second, you weren't going to see animation. But you go to the movie theater for 100 years and it's 24 frames a second. You don't even notice it, right? It's perfect. And now you go to movies that are digital because they have 60 frames a second, 120 frames a second, or people are puking their guts out. It makes them sick. Even 45 frames a second, I think, is now Hollywood's threshold for everyone's going to walk out feeling comfortable having seen the movie. Over that, people walk out and was a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon thing. That dude put it out there at 60 frames, and people were in the first release of it, and they were coming out of theaters going, man, I feel like I have a headache and I feel queasy. I've never seen something like that, so I don't know. But LED is creating light. It's a pulse width modulation. It is literally pulsing electricity off the tips of this material that is creating a ripple in ether, the vibration that's hitting you in the eye and pushing down your rods and cones. Well, at a certain pulse, it's going to pulse that electricity through your brain. Your brain's got to transmit that. You know, it's not like it's carrying a particle, right? It's not like a photon particle enters the cone, travels to the back of your visual cortex, and then spills out into your consciousness and gives you vision. That's not the way it works. It's more of a longitudinal wave of impacts, right? So it's just like taking two solid objects and banging them together. It's moving electricity through your brain. Once you can control any state of electrical pulse throughout the brain, you're gaining a tremendous invasion of consciousness, hence all the fucking LED lights that are out there, right? Every single time I hear, so we're going to lead car out there. Every single time I hear, a vendor, I put the new LED bulbs in there, man, save some fucking money. And then they still shut them off like they're fucking sucking down the same amount of power. It's hilarious. We are completely invaded electrically. You know this. Cell phone towers, your wireless internet at your house, your cell phones, your computer screens. I'm in it. You're in it. What are we going to do? It's like the movie Office Space, where at the end the guy fucking quits his job programming to go build houses, do construction work. There you go. You're in the sun all day. You're working your ass off. You get home and all you can do is go to work the next day. I envy people who have sort of those manual labor jobs where hopefully they're safe and, it's not grueling. It's something they can do into their old age. When I was young, I would hear about surf community people and like the old man that makes paint surfboards, or he takes care of surfboards or whatever. And I was always kind of buying off what they were selling in society, trying to tell me that guy wasn't necessarily a loser, but, didn't really get to his potential and all that kind of stuff. And today I look at that guy and I'm thinking, you won. You won the rat race. You never got in it. And you live within your means, hopefully, and you eat well and you get plenty of sun. You get to listen to God's voice, which is basically called waves in the ocean splashing onto the shore. I just want to remind you as I sign off here, I want you to think about, and I encourage you guys throughout hundreds of episodes to do this, but just think about man 150 years ago and then 500 years ago. And don't focus so much on the barbaric nature of fighting and all that kind of stuff. Focus on the sort of amenities that we used to have and how much we used to be in a part of nature. Not just in tune with nature, but a part of nature. You become in tune with nature as soon as you're a part of nature. Now, luckily, we don't have to live in forests being hunted by bears and that kind of stuff, or coyotes or wolves or something, right? We have amenities and we have access to nature, but we constantly talk ourselves out of it. You know, I've had neighbors at times that never left the community. They always stayed here, and they don't go to the beach. They don't go out into the desert. They don't go up in the hills or whatever. And then friends that do the desert run, and then they do the camp outs at the beach twice a year with their RV. And they're just chill and they're just relaxed, and it seems like the world kind of compliments them more often. There's enough opportunity for them to live every day without necessarily worrying about the man. And there's just more smiles on their face and more laughter, more happiness. It's not obviously guaranteed or anything, but see in your circle of life whether or not you've sequestered yourself away from reality, and that maybe there's some regiments you can do to get reconnected, because it's important. I've spent a lot more time at beaches in this last 2 or 3 years, and just, you know, taking my leather flip-flops off and putting my feet in the sand. Oh my gosh, I could feel it instantaneously balance my electrical fields in my body. And then I could have sore calves from walking at Disneyland or whatever, and then walk 30 feet on the sand, and all of a sudden my calves stop hurting. One of the most amazing things for Californians, this works anywhere, I'm sure of it, is that, you know, if you eat and you have that kind of thing, oh shit, I think I ate too much, you know, it's going to take a little while to get this out of my system. I think when you get older, you realize standing up actually helps, just giving yourself some gravity instead of sitting down on a sofa or sitting down wherever, trying to go to bed. You get all this stuff in your stomach, and it's just ugh. Go on a walk after you eat. And if you can, go on a walk where you get your feet on the ground. Even if it's just taking your shoes off and standing on the ground for even 5-10 minutes, you'll find you feel absolutely amazing. Put your shoes back on, and if you're on rougher terrain, walk around. Beaches are amazing. You know, I always heard that thing. It was like, I like long walks on the beach, right? That was the cliche of a bad dating profile. And now I'm like, oh, wow, I get it. If you look at a dating profile and it says I like a long walks on the beach, the funny thing about that means is they get it. They get the whole ecosystem of what that means. It's not about some yuppie postcard from the 80s. It is truly that you understand, even if it's not consciously, the rewards of the sound and the texture. Like, I like to walk in the top end of the waves, right, where they're splashing in. I just get up to my, you know, maybe my knees at most, right? I dig it, man. I take my sandals off, man. Just fucking looking around, the shells coming in. But I'll eat first, then go walk, get back to the car, brush myself off, you know, rinse off, brush myself off. And man, it's like that night I sleep better, you know? And it's like, in fact, I did it several days in a row, and then I didn't do it, and that night I could not sleep to save my soul. It's crazy. So anyway, I just want to put a little reminder out there. We are beings of God. We are beings of this world. Whether you believe in evolution or creationism, that means that us and planet Earth are meant to be joined. If we're in this human bag for now, right? Your soul's a whole different game. But I'm thinking that if you want to create the best relationship between your body and your soul, hence liberating your mind to be as three-dimensional and as functional as possible, we're going to have to get back to basics, right? Don't forget to plan. Don't forget to talk to folks. Don't forget to strategize. This is something that's not happening, and we got to start that conversation. You know, if any of you have an artery to the world, you've got your own influencer channel somewhere on the planet, just please tell the world, look, we got to start organizing. Stop being a victim of everything that happens in this world. You know, Maui should have taught us a lot about the unexpected happening in your neighborhood. I think we can expect that you need to brace for fires. They're going to use it in your neighborhood. And they're going to blame it on bullshit, and people are going to just eat that stuff up and just ask for another helping of, hey, as long as it's not my neighborhood, it's fun to watch on TV, right? Nope. We've got to have a plan. Where are you going to go if you wake up in the middle of the night and your fucking windows are glowing hot, right? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Is the roof going to cave in on you? Do you have a place to go? If you live next to a parking lot, can you run out to the parking lot? Is there a place you can go that's safe from like debris? You want to get on your stomach because there's going to be tons of smoke going over your head. Super hot, fiery smoke that'll burn your lungs in 2 seconds. But if you get your mouth right on the ground, you want wet towels. You want a fucking bug out bag with all your stuff in it. You know, I mean, do you sleep naked? Do you sleep with clothes on? You know, it's like you better have something figured out, man. So your survival gear might get burned up. Who knows? You have to have plan 2, plan B. And we've seen from what they did in Hawaii, they just sequestered everybody, kept them from getting everything that they need, breaking them down. They're going to fucking eminent domain all that land, steal it from them. And it's really kind of a big FU. It's like, you didn't sell your land to us? Well, this is what's going to happen to you. At some point, I feel like they're going to tell us, you know, people from Earth, we are the elite. And we're going to burn your house down if you don't do what we say. So here's what you're going to do. And all the mask wearers are going to go out there in 2 seconds. Organize, would you? Anyway, I think that's about all I got for you. If you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. Everything's up there. To the Patreon and PayPal things, thank you so much. You make it happen. You really do. You pay for these sticks. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself and someone else. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.